Hello, everybody. My name is Kaylin Hines, and I am on the Digital Page team. Welcome to the ESG and Fintech Fireside Chat. So today we have a really great event for you. We are going to be talking all about, give you the inside scoop, you could say, on both ESG and Fintech. We have three really great speakers for you today. First up, we have Dsouza. Dsouza joined Ygrene in 2021 as Vice President of Product Development, bringing over 15 years of experience in product management and technology operations. We also have Tej, who has over 25 years of diverse experience as a transformation leader and business-driven tech executive. And moderating this chat from Capgemini, we have Pradeep Singh. He is an advisor, innovator, and public speaker who speaks and writes regularly on the topics of DeFi and FinTech, equality, green finance, and more. So if you have any questions, please use the chat function, and our chat moderators will make sure to get to them during the question and answer portion. So here are our three speakers, and enjoy the event.
Kaylin, thank you for the introduction and digital page. Thank you for organizing this fireside chat with Isa and Tej. My name is Pradeep. I'll be moderating this session for you. This event is getting live streamed on YouTube of digital page channel. Please feel free, listeners, please feel free to ask questions if there are any questions, and digital page volunteers will pass that question to me and you can ask, and I will push this question to either Isa or Tej. Tej and Isa, welcome to this fireside chat. Thank you for attending this session. For the student listeners of this hackathon, this topic that we have today needs no introduction. Topic is well known to everybody, it's close to everybody's heart, and I feel mighty millennials are driving the change for today about green finance, going sustainable, and they are changing the future for a sustainable future for us. I will start with Isa, you, and maybe I'll ask you to do an introduction, talk about your journey. This climate crisis and Paris Agreement is inherently very complex. So, in your introduction, if you can try and break it up a little bit for the student audience that is participating in this hackathon, and absolutely please share your journey with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pradeep. First of all, I'm very excited to be here, everyone, with you all and contributing to this vibrant conversation at the Inclusive Data Hackathon, specifically with respect to ESG. So thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. As Caitlin mentioned, I'm Isa Dsouza, VP of Product Development at Ygrene Energy Fund. In my role, I drive new product development strategy for preserving and growing Ygrane's position as an industry-leading property-assessed financing provider. So that was a mouthful. Prior to joining Ygrene, I've spent 15 years in several financial services companies, building high-speed trading systems for trading across several US and global exchanges across asset classes, equities, fixed income, credit trading, etc. So after spending about 15 years in the industry, I was getting an entrepreneurial itch, and I wanted to make a transition from working at traditional banks and asset management companies to a fintech company, and Ygrene was the perfect place for me to do this. So a little bit about Ygrene. Ygrene started with a simple mission, helping improve the environment and strengthening communities by removing barriers to financing energy efficiency and other home improvement projects. So at Ygrene, my team and I, we run a platform that provides a new system of financing to help homeowners reduce their carbon footprint and help with water conservation efforts, along with other things. So recently in Q1 this year, Ygrene completed a securitization round of these PACE assets, which was about 344 million. So it was one of the biggest securitization rounds that we've done, and it goes to show that there's a lot of appetite in the financial markets in the industry for green bonds. As part of the broader property assessed financing industry, we've had a huge impact over the past 10, 12 years that the industry has been around for. So that includes investments of more than $10 billion across both commercial and residential projects. And we've created 30,000 plus jobs in the industry as well. And Ygrene specifically has helped contribute almost 2 million metric tons of reduction in carbon emissions through our lifespan so far, and we have a long runway ahead of us. So I'm super excited to be part of this wave, this drive towards sustainability, and I'm very excited every single day to come to work and help drive this mission forward. So I will be open to taking questions, as Pradeep mentioned towards the end, about my journey and how we make a difference here at Ygrene.
Thank you, Isa. Interesting. When you say you love to go to work every day, are you a remote first company, or are you operating from your offices?
That's a great question. We are, in fact, in the middle of transition. So we are, as of, I believe, as of June, a remote first company. So we are winding down our couple of office presence that we still had post pandemic, and we are moving to a fully remote company. We will be, in terms of keeping up and meeting colleagues that are distributed across the company. We do have occasional workshops scheduled in several cities several times during the year. So we do have people coming in to meet each other face to face. When you work with someone every single day, it's great having that connection. So yes, we are a remote first company as of now.
Tej, I will invite you to go next, share your thoughts, break this complex topic a little bit since you're an expert at Capgemini. Uh, Give us an introduction and try and break the complexities around ESG and role of data, if I may.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's great to be on the session with you, and it's a pleasure to kind of talk about this interesting topic. And this topic is on a top list of priorities for Capgemini. This is like from our CEO down to everyone else. Right? This what in Capgemini, what we call it is sustainability is one out of three priorities of this year and many years to come. So let me start with my introductions. I think thank you for getting me involved with such initiative to at least engage with next generation of talent and at least share our perspective with respect to sustainability and what can be done around it. So I've been with Cap for over 11 years, and prior to that, spent 15 years working at Wall Street for Wall Street. Been in finance industry for over 25 years in different roles, business, technology, and combination of both. Currently, in my current role, I drive sustainability solutions. I build sustainability solutions for financial services customers, like Ygrene, to other larger banks and fintechs, as well as insurers. And this is where what I try to do is what can we do by partnering with Ygrene and other financial services organizations to drive sustainability, bring innovation and sustainability together? Can we create products to make our customers and borrowers, or in this case, borrowers or lenders, kind of extending services to make overall customers greener? So that is what I drive. I'm quite passionate about it. You've seen Pradeep me talking about this subject. We're talking a couple of weeks back about the similar one on the topic when we talked about how do we engage. So I feel that sustainability is not only a goal. People talk about that we want to hit as an organization, we want to get to net zero. That's a goal. We will get there. And interesting enough, you brought up Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement, everybody's working towards, some timelines and some shape and form. They want to get to zero carbon, at least emissions as an organization. Some companies are talking 2030, some talking 2050. Everybody's talking about, marching towards 2050 timeline where, the overall shared objective is keep the average temperature increase to prehistoric time, which is, not to increase over 1.5 degrees centigrade. And that's the goal we are all marching towards. If the listeners on the call, if they are new to the topic about sustainability, I highly recommend one of the books. It was one of the best sellers from pandemic year. And this is written by Bill Gates. If you haven't read it, it's a really good book. It's in a very simple manner. It kind of narrates this whole thing. This whole book starts with, two numbers. And I'm part of data team. I'm data guy, so I'm going to talk about numbers. The book starts with two numbers, 0 and 51 billion. So 0 is where we want to get to, and 51 billion is the annual emission globally we have. That's 51 billion tons of emissions we have. So, I can go on and on about the topic, but, Pradeep, maybe I would kind of give it back to you if you want me to talk about any specific topic, or maybe shared discussions around pace, if we want to go about that.
Sure. Thank you, Tej, for the book recommendation. While the students are participating in the hackathon, while we are doing this session, people are coding behind us. So maybe some thoughts and insights, Isa and Tej, if we can give to the students who are participating in the hackathon and to our listeners. It's a very complex topic. People, organizations, they all have to come together to find out a solution that will help reduce carbon footprint, other goals that are part of Paris Agreement. How can data help? It's a data-led hackathon. How can data is the focus of this hackathon? How should the participants and our listeners should start thinking about data, leveraging data to solve this complex problem? So, Tej, why don't you go first and sprinkle some innovative ideas to the participants of the hackathon?
Absolutely. I would not share the ideas, but I would say directionally, I will nudge them towards it, because I'm involved in defining the problem statement. So one out of three statements is.
I'm sure you're not gonna share the that you kept it for yourself.
Absolutely. So, but that's a good point, Pradeep. And, Isa, I'll start, and then, maybe, I'll let you also chime in, because you guys are, anything the way I say Ygrene does is green. You guys, anything you do is green. So everything is green labeled with Ygrene. So, but not with any other banks or lenders. And this is where, you have to differentiate. So what I would suggest, as part of this data, and Pradeep put it nicely, data, it starts with data. So how do you go about data? So if you look at financial services, banking and lending industry, one of the things which you can think about is none of these measurements are out there. And when you do a basic reading about emissions and what banks call it emissions, there is a difference between you look at an energy company, oil and gas company, a manufacturing company, and a Ygrene or a Bank of America or Wells Fargo type of a large bank, financial services institution. And when you go back to, how a company or an organization measure their emissions or footprint, in a simplistic term, we can say their carbon footprint. It is divided into as per the GHG, which is greenhouse gas emission standards. And there are standards, been out there for many, many years. But they have broken it down into scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 standards. Scope 1 is in creating a product. any direct footprint is of carbon footprint or emissions. So it's very easy when you are a airline company. American Airlines, for them it's very easy. They to create those flights, they need certain things, and that's about it, right? So every time that flight takes off, there is a footprint right there, then and there. Scope 2, and again for banks or Ygrene, that scope 1 becomes more of their own footprint of their building, the way of they do things in a regular business as usual things they do it. Scope 2 is the indirect footprint. This is where comes in electric. They need to have AC going, fans going, light going, other stuff going, their computers going. That becomes their scope 2 emissions. So that is important. So this is scope 2. This is where a complexity increases. So scope 1 is very easy. Any organization can find out. No rocket science. This is where complexity comes in. This is where you have to go and figure out if a bank like Ygrene has 15 locations or facilities or offices, or so from each one of those, what's the utility footprint? So it's from water, energy, blah blah blah, everything else, and then what is the footprint? But the most complicated part for a financial services industry is measuring scope 3 emissions. Scope 3 is if Ygrene is gonna lend $100 to someone, and that $100, how is that $100 gonna get utilized, and what will be the footprint of that $100? That Ygrene has to bring it back. And when everyone talks about getting to net zero, that means every money goes out from Ygrene. They need to make sure that they are doing, even if they are giving money out, which results into some carbon footprint, they need to figure out a way that they also give money to other areas where it generates a negative footprint. So, how would you get negative footprint? If you invest or if you lend money to renewable energy sources like solar farms or wind farms or forestry or agriculture land, that is where there is a calculation done over the negativity. So this is where they have to balance it out. But the most complex part is calculating financed emission for a bank. This is where a lot of large banks, if you go to Barclays as a global bank, they are one of the leaders in promoting this finance calculation, and it's out there in public domain. So if you do Barclays and Blue Track, you will find the methodology they have created, and that is something they are going to use in calculating, scope 3. There was another UK bank, NetWest. They are also doing the similar thing. They were out in news earlier this week. So the point, I think, to all the listeners on the call, one of the complex problems, there is a lot of progress being made, but one of the complex problem is how can financial services in a systematic and a simplified way calculate their finance emission, and that is scope 3. Their finance, the money they are financing, the money they are lending, is there a way? And if that can be simplified, that is a problem statement for us to achieve. And the extension of that is expanding that E of emissions. So stands for environment, S stands for social, and G stands for governance. So that's the ESG. When you look at emissions or financed emission or a carbon footprint, that's a small sliver of E. It's not everything associated with E. Then you have water management, you have waste management, you have a bunch of other stuff. So there comes the more complexity. Just to do the one part of it, it's complex. If you need to extend it, it's even more. So that's where you guys come in. Can you build a model? Can you figure out a way to simplify this problem, put machine behind it, machine learning and algorithms and AI, and that's where you can help. I'll Isa, I want to hear your thoughts. I've been bringing a lot of financing in here, but would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isa, if you can bring out some use cases that you are using, right, and putting data in front of the sales team, the underwriters, and your consumers in front of them. How are you putting data to make a smart decision on your internal, your sales side, with underwriting side, and your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to take a step back and just explain some basic concepts first, as Tej did as well. Thank you for explaining, the different levels of GHG emissions. I want to demystify ESG a little bit. So, most of you may have heard of corporate social responsibility principles. What ESG essentially does, it's like a scorecard, right? It's a report card of having a empirical, a data-driven measurement of that organization's fulfillment towards CSR, right? Globally, we have about 3,000 organizations that have committed more than $80 trillion in ESG investing. So this is a main focus for a lot of companies. I think it was in 2020, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, BlackRock manages $9 trillion in assets under management. He challenged his colleagues, his CEO, his fellow CEOs, to make sustainability a key measure of this corporate governance and corporate performance. So since that has now brought in ESG into the mainstream, I want to frame the problem, right? Like, what problem is this industry facing? And I think that that unique problem is called greenwashing, where yes, companies want to focus on ESG, but it tends to become like a marketing term to appease investors, appease customers, and it sometimes undermines the hard work that companies like Ygrene put in, who take ESG very seriously, right? So the problem is that we need a unique way to independently measure and verify how are these companies tracking towards these goals that have been set up. And we have to do this at scale, right? As I mentioned, there's global companies that are interested in doing this and want to make this more mainstream. So in my mind, that solution is bringing in data, bringing in the right analytics and AI to process this vast amount of unstructured data that organizations are collecting across cross-functional teams, and then use that towards getting the right predictive analytics to help companies make that positive impact. So Ygrene, specifically to answer your question, Pradeep, we have several data sources that similarly bring in data within the organizations. We use the likes of Black Knight. We also work with the rating agencies to understand the credit ratings of the borrowers. We don't make a hard credit pull. This is one of the innovations that Ygrene has launched in June, where we don't require a hard credit pull. We're looking at the amount of equity the borrower has accumulated within the property, their ability to pay, et cetera, and other factors to build a model to help us underwrite the specific application that comes in. So we have empowered our underwriting teams, our operations team, to make these decisions without requiring this hard credit pull that a lot of other banks and financial institutions require in order to lend money. So I think that's a unique aspect of Ygrene and the property assessed financing industry, where we're able to offer this to customers and make clean energy, make sustainability something that everyone can tap into. And it's not, you're just looking at this huge price tag and you balk at it. So we provide loans, we provide financing options that go up to 30 years, and monthly payments can be as low as $200 a month. So it makes it very affordable over a longer term to take this step in this direction and go ahead and make those energy efficiency improvements on your home, install the solar panels and alternative energy solutions to sort of move away from the traditional sources of energy. So I think data-led innovation is key, and AI analytics are the 2 to 3 pillars that will help solve this fundamental problem of data tools and understanding how, at a transactional level, companies can start tracking and measuring how they're performing towards these goals, the ESG goals that they've set out.
Well said, Isa. This is too big a complex problem for a corporation to solve individually. It's a partnership. It's a partnership of people. It's a partnership of corporations. It's a partnership for everybody to come together and use data, AI to create solutions for the climate crisis we all have facing. Mm. I will extend the greenwashing statement that you made, Isa, a little bit, and talk about open data. And this is Tej's favorite topic. Is there a marketplace wherein impactful data can be leveraged in everybody's effort is accountable? Can you quantify this stage for an organization? Is there trust in the ecosystem around the data that a corporation is providing around the commitment towards ESG? Or as an individual, can I go somewhere and say, hey, I do not use plastic, I do not uh, drive to work, I bike to work. This is an impact I'm making in the society and contributing towards the goals. Is there a place where we can go as individuals and check this and validate this stage?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And Pradeep, just to reiterate, the point you are making is applicable both for me as an individual and the company I work for as an organization. At both levels, this is important question that, how do you quantify and how do you communicate how are you changing? And this is all new data. This is absolutely new data. So data, we don't know, these are new measures are being defined as we speak. And just to take an example of organizations or consortiums, uh, PCAF is one where in lending space, uh, you use their guidelines, and there are like hundreds of large banks have participated now. They feed data in, and then you can leverage that data. So the good part is at least there are some standards out there. We are not there yet in terms of if you talk about a standardized way of credit reporting or credit default, right? If you want to identify if a company is company's credit rating, or a sovereign's credit rating, or an individual's credit rating, which is FICO. I'm a little shifting, but giving two examples. There are certain rigors in place, and there are certain standard measures are in place. So if I go to for my individual FICO score, or if I go to one out of three credit bureaus, chances are it's not going to have any differences. The delta will be negligible between my score from Equifax versus Experian. Or
Mhm.
if you go to credit rating of a company or a sovereign, so if you want to see Russia as a company, and if you want to see their credit rating, you go to Moody's, you go to S&P, or you go to Fitch. Chances are they're not going to have major delta differences. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that has evolved and matured a lot, the credit rating space. All these same rating agencies, they also started now publishing ESG ratings. If you go and ask me, and I can sit down in less than 5 minutes, I can come up with 5 names where ESG rating of those 5 companies, I go to 3 different rating agencies, and there is a massive gap into how they are rated. So the example I'm going to give is, Philip Morris. And I'm not taking any sensible example, sustainable company type of example. I'm taking a usual, simple, very simple. It's a black and white. When you look at E, S, and G, social element, which is tobacco consumption, it's bad for humankind, human race, right? So when you talk about Philip Morris, the natural response is going to be it's negative for social causes in general, right? If you go to, I'm not going to name, but if you go to 2 rating agencies, one rate them neutral, the other one rates them negative. And the reason that is being done, because the inner complexity of E, S, and G. If I do good in E, that means if I plant million trees, but if I do not do much about the social causes, the weightages by these rating agencies could be tweaked a little bit, and I could become either neutral, negative, or maybe positive. I don't know, right? So, coming back to your point about data and standards, this is where I feel until there are regulations in place and standards in place, the best thing to do is we should give that decision back onto consumers. So I can go and say, Isa, what do you care about? Out of ESG, that's massive, that's complex. You may not care about everything. And if you do care about everything, just give me top 3 things you care about. Let me go back as an organization, either a credit provider or a financing provider or investment provider. I can go back and say, if Isa cares about dolphins, and Isa cares about renewable energy, and Isa cares about diversity and inclusion. If these are the things I care about, now let me go back and start measuring companies who she interacts with and start providing some custom scores back to you rather than somebody sitting in the rating agency or data providers coming up with their own formula in creating that. So anyway, long story short, I think until we stabilize, until regulations are in place, the best solution right now is just let's work with consumers, understand what do they care about, and give them what is important rather than just inheriting some of these scores. And that is completely new data, that is completely new modeling, and that is an emerging space where we all should be focusing on. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I echo a lot of what you called out, Tej, in terms of having a system in place to calculate this. So you can when you're comparing one company to another, you have some sort of standard rubric you're measuring them versus, but they could have different priorities depending on the industry they're in. So within the investment management space, as ESG is now become one of the priorities for a lot of the investment companies, they tend to have unique models in place, right? They're doing their due diligence, whether you're a pension fund or an asset manager or a bank. You're doing your due diligence. You have your own custom models that tend to give you an investment edge, right, as you evaluate the ESG performance of the companies in your portfolio. If we were to open that up, right, and make it so that it's not just an investment edge, but you open it up because it's going to do good for the public, you're then, bringing a lot of these dark models to light, and the likes of the folks in this hackathon can then have access to these models, have access to the various data sources, alternative data sources that these companies look at to make their investment decisions. It will then unleash a world of innovation, right? We can have a custom app, desktop, mobile, to track exactly what you just mentioned, Tej. If we were to make these tools available to innovators to build something custom that would do precisely what you just mentioned, like measuring your individual carbon footprint. With respect to the standards in the industry, right, we have the Sustainability Accounting Standard Boards, the SASB. We have the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, the TCFD. So there are organizations that are starting to set these standards. But we need a rigorous sort of mechanism to verify and review the output of these standards, right? So if organizations like, let's take the SEC as a regulator in the equity investment space, if they adopt an open data policy for the US, we have a lot of foreign fund managers investing in the US markets who now have to adhere to these disclosures, right? So that will then create a ripple effect. Other regulators will also quickly adopt these new ESG reporting and disclosure standards. So it becomes like the new gold standard. So I hope they're listening, and if they were to set precedents, I think the dominoes start to fall, and everyone else will also catch on pretty quickly. So yeah, I think if we were to open up the ESG data that some of the financial services companies leverage today for their investments decisions, as well as working with the SEC and other regulatory bodies to help us move towards a more open and make disclosures a requirement in this space, it will help innovation and help drive innovation. And hopefully we have some entrepreneurs in our mix here who will catch up on that and build the next unicorn app, which can help us get some more transparency into the space.
Excellent. That good segue that leads to my next question. This should be an easy one for Tej. Tej, are there tools, techniques that the participants of the hackathon and our student listeners can use to create solutions on ESG? Can you give us examples of few startups who are in the ESG space and creating some innovative solutions?
That's a good point. I think for the listeners on the call, what I would suggest is, and I'm going to shift and create a parallel and give you an example from which may have applicability to financial services, but it's not totally financial services specific. So let me start with financial services, and then I will give example of parallel, and that is what you can focus on. So take Ygrene as an example. What Ygrene has done for the PACE investing, if I'm not sure listeners on the call, they know about PACE investing or PACE financing. It's an innovative product it's created. It's a property assessed clean energy financing. So what this financing is, it's in a simplistic term, it is an home equity loan or similar to that, but it is not. It is a lot of differences. The fundamental principle of this product is, and when it was created, is to allow borrowers to borrow money to make improvements into their property, their home, to make it more efficient, more energy specific, more greener home. Now that is one a uniqueness. The second uniqueness is when anybody gets a home mortgage, it's on them as an individual. In this case, in a PACE, it is attached to not an individual. If I borrow some money, if Pradeep gets some money to make improvements to his home, even if Pradeep sells that property, he's responsible. He needs to move on and keep paying. Versus in this case, it's the property. The lien is attached to property. So if Pradeep sells the property to somebody else, now the other person coming in will continue and pay off that loan. But so the point is, loan is not given to an individual. Loan is given to a property, and that's the sole objective, to make that property green, to make that property energy efficient. Anyway, that's an innovative product I'm talking about, am I right? Or differentiating. Now let's shift gears. For listeners to use, what do they use? I'll take an example of cloud providers, hyperscaler like AWS. Everybody knows, and we all kind of agree that moving to cloud from a legacy data center is a green move. It's going to shift you towards being more optimized, energy consumption, heat consumption, or distribution and stuff like that. However, while you move over there, AWS has created something they call it good architecture. It's just a solution. It's a blueprint out there for everyone to use it. And now when they migrate, they come up with solutions. They can leverage that framework, that they can leverage those principles in creating how to further optimize. The example I'm trying to give is, there are a lot of open source solutions like that out there. There are a lot of open source carbon calculator engines out there. What you could do as a starting point is, if you just Google carbon calculator, even Capgemini has one, which we typically use for our client engagements. but you will find many of those. The advantage you have is now you can borrow that, build something on top of it, and then extend it for a use case which is something unique for yourself. I think that is my recommendation to you all.
Thank you, Tej. Isa?
So at Ygrene, we use several BI tools, the cloud technologies that they just mentioned, as well as I think from a analyst standpoint, there are open source data sources that you can potentially tap into. So specifically with respect to BI tools, there's Click, there's Tableau, there's Power BI, Looker are some of the tools that come to mind. Then if you look, those are mostly, for analysis and visualization and reporting. When it comes to machine learning technologies, there's MLflow, Databricks that allow you to connect all these various disparate data pipelines to the models that you'll be building, and you can track the life cycle of the ML model through A/B testing, experimentation, etc. So those are some of the tools that come to mind. And then standard technologies like Python, R, SQL to help you use the relevant libraries to discover and visualize these data sets and share insights with your stakeholders. And I also want to reiterate, yes, the rating agencies do have methodologies, and it's published on their website. So I would encourage you to look at the different methodologies that they use. These have been around for some time as well. And yes, they are getting more standard over time, but perhaps not fast enough. So, S&P Global, Moody's, and Fitch, they use several ESG principles in their credit ratings. If we're looking at environmental factors, they could look at climate transition risks, waste and pollution management. When it comes to social factors, it could be human capital or social capital, health and safety for employees, and also the governance models that they could have in place, right? Whether you have a culture of risk management and oversight, and having through your data reporting and transparency for the company, are you putting out these disclosures that could help the industry, help the public and private partnerships that have been built around this space. So there are several, tools, data sets that are out there. But most importantly, I would like to call out the people, right? I think in my head, that's the most important aspect of building and assembling a team to help in this direction. So whether you're a data scientist, whether you're a ML engineer, whether you're a data analyst, it's imperative that you work with your colleagues, your classmates, to sort of focus your energy, focus your skills towards accomplishing, this vast potential in this space. And I hope through this panel discussion, we can encourage you all to pursue opportunities in this space.
Very well said, Isa. With that, I would like to thank both of you for the insights and the guidance to the participants of the hackathon. Hopefully, we were able to demystify the mist around ESG and how we can use data to power our solutions on ESG. Given the time constraint, we may not be able to take any questions, but I would like to thank Digital Page and Capgemini IND Practice to set up this session. And if there are questions, we will post our email IDs, and we would be happy to answer any questions for the participants or our listeners. With that, thank you, Isa, thank you, Tej, and thank you to the listeners of this video cast from Digital Page and Capgemini.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thanks, Sage, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.
This is awesome.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck. Bye.
Hello again, hackers. Thank you for coming out to this amazing event, and thank you to the panelists that we just heard from. We learned a lot about ESG and fintechs, their methods. A lot of important information was said. We did record this session, if you missed it or if you're just joining. So you can find it on our YouTube. It will be uploaded very shortly. The next session is the, hang on, sorry about that. The next event is the Up Close and Personal with Female Trailblazers in Tech happening at 4 p.m. So we are looking forward to seeing you there. You can also find the full schedule of events on Discord. Please remember to utilize Discord this weekend throughout the hackathon and use the various channels if you have questions. And there is a digital page admin who's willing to help. Thank you.